Yeah. Let me drop exclusive game from my exclusive mind. You be out here chasing fame, I stay steady on my grind. Zero diamonds, zero.
Thank you for tapping into the Exclusive Minds podcast. Today we're going to be having an exclusive conversation with exclusive content from Exclusive Minds. I'm your host, Rook, and
Joe.
let's get right into it.
So 35.
Yo,
Still cranking out. Every
Welcome-
time.
I know. Welcome back. It seems like this has just become part of the normal right now.
Yeah,
It's
another
just
2 weeks. So what's
2
the deal,
weeks.
man? Did you pass quarantine, right?
Yep.
What's
So-
this about the 10th time you've had COVID?
It is not the 10th time I've had COVID.
Come on, it's at least the third or
it's-
fourth.
I think it is the second or third.
Jesus.
But I think you're thinking of I had mono in between. Yeah, so mono's no joke. I don't know if you've ever had that before, Eddie, but it's no joke.
Oh, dude, I had it freshman year of college. It was awful.
Yeah, it's terrible. So I guess before anything, we have someone in the call. He's a good friend of mine. He wears multiple hats, including what do you call that? Real estate, developing apps, soccer or semi-professional soccer player. I don't know. You do a lot of stuff, man. So this is Eddie.
Hopefully you're not a Manchester United fan, because if you are, you're
No, of
probably wallowing in misery like I am.
No, of course not. I am not a Manchester United fan. Believe it or not, I'm a Newcastle fan. So, I mean, I've been wallowing in misery for years, actually.
Your time might be coming now that you're owned by the richest people on the planet. So who
That's
knows?
right. That's right. I'm crossing my fingers, man.
So Eddie, I guess we were talking briefly off air. We just like to do like a quick introduction just between like the guest and our people over here. So our people being Joe, but
Yeah.
so we were talking and we were gonna shout out your podcast, but you were saying something that you got what is that, like a cease and desist, or what would you call that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was like you have to change the name or you got to stop the podcast. So it was the People's Podcast originally. And there were, I mean, if you go on Spotify too, there are like 8 or 9 different ones that are entitled the People's Podcast.
Yeah.
So I don't know why mine was like targeted.
I think they seen
but
the
I was
biggest
told-
threat. Maybe, who knows?
I mean, maybe that's it, man. I had like 2 episodes. So like, and that's the thing. So I have no idea what they were thinking, but
Yeah.
I had to stop it or change the name. So I mean, I kind of backed off for a little bit so that I kind of just I was more worried about them actually like doing something.
Yeah, right.
So I was just like, all right, let me back off. Let me just not do anything for a while, and I would love to get it up and rolling again, just because I do have a vision for it. But it's just I got a few other things going on right now. So,
No, for sure.
We should
it's
talk
kind
about
of been
that,
put on
'cause-
the back burner.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You probably just got, I mean, it was probably just a timing issue. I bet you it was just someone kind of running through the list of anybody who had the People's Podcast and sending the letters out. And it was just probably a timing issue, because I can't imagine they were going to put the thumb to somebody who has 2 freaking episodes. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
It was just like you said, a timing thing. I mean, so quickly going off of the podcasting before we do a deep dive here, what I guess what's your takeaway from doing the podcast only for 2 episodes, but just in the grand scheme of things, like what do you see as some of like the hardships going into it, right? Like I know me and Joe, it's more so just like a scheduling thing and getting out and actually doing it. What would you say like the toughest thing for you would be?
I mean, I think the toughest thing for me is getting guests on the show.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the
tough.
biggest thing is it's lining up people's schedules, because you're not just lining up, because I was just a single guy doing it. So you guys obviously got to line up your schedules, but I had to line up my schedule with you were on the podcast once, and then I had another buddy of mine who I had on the first one. But again, it's just and it's just they're busy, you're busy, and you got to figure, because you don't want boring people on your podcast.
Absolutely.
So they're gonna be busy to begin with. So just like finding time to actually connect and make things happen is very difficult. And then you kind of got to be ready at like a moment's notice to make it happen.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
I called
especially
you
with
this
guests.
morning. Yeah, I called him this morning, and it was literally like within an hour. I'm like, hey, what are you doing in like an hour from now? And he was just like, oh, nothing.
Yeah,
I'm free.
I mean, we didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
we never really intentionally set this podcast out to do guests,
Yes.
because we knew we wouldn't get them, right? I mean, we figured we wouldn't get them. So, I mean, ours was always supposed to be about the generational differences between Dave and I, and then just talk about that. And then the guest thing, I guess, really the Carol Baskin thing was the one that really kind of set us on that path, and
Yeah,
it was
for
fun.
sure.
I mean, but as a startup and not being famous and not having that allure,
take
right?
those-
It's tough to kind of get anybody who's really even meaningful.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't even like take as much risks. Like when you have people on like that, and you have like a platform like Joe Rogan or some of these top guys, like you could take
Easy.
more of a risk. Well, get them on is easy, but you could ask them more of those questions to like make them speak a little bit more? Because if she wanted to, she could just be like, all right, yeah, I'm not doing this, like within like the first 5 minutes, and then just completely block this out.
It's so funny though, because I mean, I was listening to Elon Musk when he was on the Full Send, right? And it's just rinse and repeat, man. I'm like,
the same thing over
you know,
and over again.
It's got to the point where I think the whole interviewing thing is starting to kind of just sort of get long in the tooth, man. It's like everybody's just everybody has the same questions, and it's just like I don't know. It was just kind of rinse and repeat, and I was like,
Eddie, you did a good job on your podcast of finding questions and asking me different questions. At least when I was on there, like what was your research process like? And I know a lot of the time we spent was. This was like, what, 2 years ago at this point, or 1 year, or something? I don't know, something in that ballpark.
Yeah, it was about a year ago. And I mean, no, sorry, go ahead, man.
No. So I was just gonna say, like, what's your like process like of just getting questions that, like Joe said, doesn't sound like rinse and repeat. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, dude. I mean, so you got to do some research into your guests. You know, like Joe was talking about the Full Send podcast, and if you go watch the Mark Cuban episode and the Elon Musk episode, it's about the same thing because they happen to be businessmen. So there's like, oh, here's the, I guess they're like, here's the sheet of questions to ask the business guy.
Yep.
So you have to actually go into what that person does and like make it interesting.
Yeah, right.
So they have the allure and they have the views that are going to be like, oh shoot, okay, well, like you have Elon Musk or Mark Cuban in the thumbnail, and you're just going to go and throw them up on it, and people are going to watch it on YouTube.
Yeah. Not a lot of substance though, right?
No, it's not. So that's the thing is I went in and I'm like, okay, well, I'm a 23-year-old guy, and what does David do? David makes clothes. That's really fucking cool. So, am I allowed to curse on here?
No, of course. You already did, so go ahead. Rock out.
But
it's happened once or twice before.
Yeah.
All right, cool. But no, I'm just like, that's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do. And I mean, I went and delved into what he did during the time that we went to college together, and how he kind of just did more than just the basic, you know, college kid of ironing letters onto a t-shirt and calling it a brand.
Yeah. Pathetic, by the way.
I was just, it's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
I've seen like 15 people that I graduated with doing the same thing. And I'm like, you know, you got to do something different.
Right.
But yeah, man, I'm just like, that's really freaking cool.
Yeah.
Like, let's see how we can focus on that, because that's what people want to hear. Because I mean, how many people do you walk by that I'm sure are just like, I would love to be like a designer one day or something like that, and like you're doing it.
No, for sure. I appreciate the gas, man.
Yeah, of course, bro. But like, that's the thing is like, you got to find that thing that, you know, that's their niche, or like that people are going to find cool. You know, like if you're going and interviewing Mark Cuban, you like the whole Full Send thing was all about his pharmaceutical company, which is great. You know, you're saving a lot of money on drugs, but you know what's cool is the Dallas Mavericks and Shark Tank.
Yeah.
So you know that's what you should be focusing on, not his pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting take on it too, because I didn't know about, like, I've heard about his the pharmaceutical thing because I've seen it on Twitter or something once before, but I think his whole thing with that is he doesn't spend any of the money marketing. I know this is kind of off topic, but it just I thought that was very interesting, but I know what you mean. Like, people want to know what they've known that person for, like Mark Cuban, obviously Shark Tank, the Mavericks, that type deal. So
yeah, and I'm sure as part of the commitment for him to even come on, right? It was, you need to talk about this because I'm promoting it, right?
Exactly.
So
there's probably a lot of things.
It's a give and take. You know, you sort of have to go through the standard questions and stuff like that. That's all. I mean, like, you know, I the only thing I can harp back to is our Carol Baskin episode, right? And it was like, we didn't ask her anything about Tiger King, right? We didn't want. That's not why we wanted her on, right? I mean, it was kind of nice that we sort of went completely off script and just had a conversation about something that was really kind of different than what I think
most
everybody
people would see from her.
Have just exhaustively talked to her about.
No, for sure.
But I'm sure, like, you know, a guy like Elon Musk and Mark Cuban, right? It's a little unscripted, but it's also very scripted, you know. So I'm sure they're like, this is the guidelines on what I want to talk about. Don't stray off of it, and if you do, I'll never come back, kind of thing. And
I wonder if they do have something, because I feel
like
Elon Musk
and stuff like that.
Elon Musk nowadays, like, I feel like he's kind of like the go-to guy if like there's ever a controversy. Like, let's throw him under the bus. So it's like him having all these controversies. I wonder if he's like, all right, I don't feel comfortable talking about this, and this. So figure it out and then kind of just go off of that, you know? But
I gotcha. I feel like he's one of the dudes though that just like has so much money it doesn't really matter at this point. Like he just like, he honestly doesn't matter how many, like, he's tons of, like, you know, he has a ton of controversies behind him, and he has a bunch of controversial opinions according to the media. So I'm like, you know, but like, you know, no matter how hard they try, they're not gonna do anything to him just because he owns some of the biggest companies in the world. So
Yeah.
like they're not going to touch him.
Yeah,
They're
for sure.
trying, but yeah.
So you talked about being an RA, and I know we talked about it on your show, but please, like, tell the people what it was like being the handler, as you would say, for a bunch of college kids, and what was the reason behind doing that, and then we could get into some of the stuff that you're doing currently. I just very curious as to like why how that all came about, because when you think about it, college kids like straight out of high school, oh my god, I couldn't even imagine like delegating all these kids basically.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, the biggest thing is like I'm not a narc. I couldn't afford school. That was my thing. So I needed to figure out how I could afford school, and that was my option. It was be an RA or, you know, make an hour and a half commute to classes every day. And so that was what I had to do. So it wasn't willing, I should say.
Yeah.
So I definitely wouldn't have done it out of you know, something that I like really wanted to do.
Right.
But they asked me, like, and they're just like, "Hey, Eddie," and I have no idea where they got this idea from. They were like, "Hey, Eddie, we have the Francis Hall where we live." David was the economic hallway, they called it, and it's essentially the cheapest store among campus, and you get to it's more home to the people who don't have the money to afford the nicer places. And they're like, "Hey, you know, you can align yourself with these kids. Like, you know, we picked you up because you couldn't afford school. Do you want to do that?" I'm like, "That's a very blunt question there, but sure." Yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, I did it. And then like all these kids came up to me and they were like, you know, "What the hell is going on with this place?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Well, you know, I got here and I have this letter saying that I don't owe anything, but then I just got a letter in the mail saying I owe 20 grand. What's good?"
Yeah.
And then I also had a few kids going like, "Hey man, like the calf closes, like I can't eat. What do I do?" I'm like, "Oh shoot. Okay."
So now you have some real world problems to do. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So like normally, like, I mean, most people would just overlook those. And I think the reason that like I was kind of popular in that realm was like, you know, I didn't just like overlook the problems. I was just like, "Oh shoot, okay, let's see what we can do." So I started up a food pantry by the end of the year, and then I was pivotal in the NCAA D3 disclosure, at least at Alvernia, where they couldn't just hand you a piece of paper where they said, "Oh, football, here's a big zero at the bottom here," then you're not paying anything. Because what that included was your FAFSA loans, so the unsubsidized and subsidized loans.
Right.
So like they just handed them a piece of paper that said zero, but also you'd had to take out 15 grand in loans, and then subsidized, and then 7 grand unsubsidized to afford your schooling for the semester. So I'm like, you know, like you can't do that and just hand a 17-year-old kid with no parents a piece of paper that says zero.
No,
like that's not how it works.
So
That's not fair.
I was going to bring that up
yeah.
because if you think about the concept of college, and I know Joe has strong opinions about this, but the whole thing with college is you're basically getting stripped away from your parents, and then they're forcing decisions upon you, knowing how dumb and irresponsible you are, essentially.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
It's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, everybody's you have to learn through experience, right? So
I mean,
they're
sure,
putting you into a situation where you have to, you know, kind of think for yourself. And so it's not, you know.
But yeah, I think that would be the case if this wasn't such a pivotal part of their lives, because there's still people paying loans when they're 40 years old. So it might be a learning experience when you're 17 or 18.
I absolutely do agree that they do a fabulous job of just kind of hiding the numbers.
Right.
I mean, I see that even with Natalie, right? I mean, I think Immaculata is probably not a D3 school. I don't know what they are, but they, I mean, it's they don't make reference to the fact that she's got that federal, you know, Pell Grant or whatever the hell it is. That's
Yep.
That's, you know, she has to pay back. I mean, there's no reference to that at all, and you just see it zeroed out, like you said. So, I mean, I get that. I mean, they definitely hide it. I mean, the financial thing is a little bit more of a challenging issue, but, you know, throwing people into the deep end of the pool and just saying, "Hey, you got to kind of experience life," it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that's really kind of the value of college and living off, you know, the parents' campus, right? So
I agree with that. And I just, my whole thing, like I said, was more so the numbers thing. But I agree. Moving out was definitely a huge part of my life. And I'm sure, I don't know, Eddie, did you move out? Was like college your first time moving out, or did you live by yourself prior to that?
No. So when I moved, like my freshman year, I went to Drew at first, which is a school up in North Jersey, and that was my first time moving. I really haven't been back, like, you know, long term since, but you know, it's just I mean, you know, it is my first experience, and I think the big thing is like, you know, you have this particular set of circumstances where you have to learn to live on your own. You have to learn to budget on your own and things like that. But the thing and the thing that I find like very disheartening is that, at the end of the day, originally when college was first started and like up through probably like, the late 80s, early 90s, you weren't paying an arm and a leg to go to college. But now people are taking 20 grand out a semester, and it's a huge decision that can burden them for a long, long time. So, that financial decision where they're being thrown into the deep end could put them into a hole until they're 35, 40 years old.
Yep.
Rather than, and that's the thing. That's the problem where, you can make a decision when you're 17 about, possibly like, getting pulled over and you have like, a bottle of alcohol in your car and you get an underage or something like that. And, you kind of have to deal with it. And like, a lot of people have had to deal with that. And, you go and explain it to employers and blah, blah, blah. You work your way up after a little bit of a tough decision that you made. But at the end of the day, figuring that, everyone's telling you need to go to college, taking out a $20,000 loan unknowingly because you see a big zero at the end of it and your college coach handles it for you. That's a problem. And that's the issue that I see. And throwing them into the deep end that way is just not appropriate in my eyes.
I was going to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I came in my freshman year, when you were the RA, that was our first time with a football program, correct? Like that was kind of like the main thing at the time was, hey, we're bringing a D3 school, a football program. And like you said, they were handling a lot of things. There was probably a lot of new problems that arose that they kind of overlooked, or like you said, these kids just saw that zero at the bottom and they were like, all right, let me just sign this and let someone else handle it because that's all it is, right?
Yep.
So
100%.
That's interesting. But let me tell you.
So when you're an RA, so are you? What's the? Is there an age delta between, I guess, you and the freshmen or whoever's coming in the school? I don't know. I'm trying to put some perspective to this. I mean, you've obviously kind of lived and had a lot of the experiences before they sort of dumped the RA role on you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so I mean that was my thing is like my freshman year I ended up going to a school that I had a decent amount of money for and a housing scholarship for, so it wasn't a big problem that I came to Alvernia, and then I just figured I had a semester that I had to essentially figure out how I could, like I had money saved up so that I could go live somewhere like on campus, and I had a semester to figure it out, so I figured it out within a semester and I got the RA role. Luckily, but the thing is that I mean there wasn't much of an age difference. I started college when I was 17, so I going into that year I was a year older than they were, so they were all coming in at 18, 19. I was 19 and I turned 20 that year, so
okay.
So it wasn't that big of an age discrepancy.
All right, so yeah, tough sell then, right? So there's you're basically talking to peers and trying to drive behavior, which I'm sure is not an easy thing to do.
Well, see, my thing is in that role, I'm like, listen, like, I'm in a hallway full of grown ass men. They can make their own decisions. Like, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be a narc. I'm not going to like do anything like that. I'm going to sit in my room. I'm going to go out myself. I'm going to do whatever I can. These are grown ass men. If they're like dying on the side of the road, they can call me. Like that was my big
Eddie was the GOAT RA, man. Like, on your podcast, we talked a lot, like in detail about some of the stories, but like a couple of the things that stand out from that year, and this probably sounds like rinse and repeat at this point, but we had a snowball fight in the dorm. Like Eddie was like in his room, like asleep or something like that, and these kids got into an argument. I forget what the argument was, but he went outside. And a lot of the time, because they, like I said, it was a new football program, they would bring people from the South, like Florida, and they would first time seeing snow, so they were super hype about it, whatever. They grabbed a bucket of snow and started throwing it in the hallway. And I remember Eddie just came out and he just like kind of like shook his head, like we were like, oh shit, like we're gonna get in a big trouble. And then Eddie was just like shaking his head. He was just like, yeah, like what the hell are you guys doing? Like if anything, this is gonna come back and bite me, not you guys. So yeah, he was a cool guy. And what about the we also had another controversy with the bathrooms, Eddie, if you want to tell that story to Joe.
That was so funny, and I really dug it because like, there was some kid that just like kept on messing up our bathrooms. Like he was just squirting ketchup and mustard all over the place, and then eventually like I had to do my own shit. I was working, I also was the RA, and like I played soccer there as well. So like I was busy and I was never there. So like when I got back, I fell asleep. Yeah. So, that was the thing is like, and then so I got a call from like my boss that was just like, hey, there's mustard and ketchup every morning all over your bathrooms. Yeah. I'm I'm like, I know, because you know what I do for work here? Like, you know, it's my boss. I'm like, I'm a janitor here, so I have to clean it up. Like, you know, you think I'm like not aware of this? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So like, they're like, yeah, but like, you got to stop it. I'm like, I can't stop it because it happens in the middle of the night. I'm not going to wake up and post up there. And then they're just like, well, you got to figure it out or you lose your job. I'm like, okay,
Nice.
whatever. I hang up, and then I had like 15, like there were 14 guys in our hall, and I think there were like 8 of them that like walked over to the office and was just like, if you fire Eddie, like I will leave Alvernia. Like,
Yeah,
and so
you're
like
dope, bro.
they held me down. So I was all about it. And
But-
I never knew what happened. But
Yeah, apparently like the
Figured it
person
out.
did it because they didn't want to go to like their tests in the morning. Like that was like their excuse. They wanted to like sleep in. So like he would say like, "Oh, I wasn't able to go to like the bathroom because people keep messing up our thing." That was like kind of like the rumor at the time. I don't know how
So like
accurate.
the guy who calls in the bomb threats because he doesn't want to get on the airplane or some stupid
Yeah,
shit. I mean, come on.
something similar to that, man. I mean, it was
people.
crazy. And on top of that, when that wasn't working, of like threatening to fire Eddie, they would like threaten to charge us. Like I forget the amount, but they threatened to like charge us out of that, right, Eddie? Does that sound accurate?
yeah, it was like $50 a day or something like that. And
Yeah,
then like
well.
they threw the 50, and I'm like, there are 14 guys in that hall. Like, you're breaking down 50. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So like, I mean, they were kind of trying to scare you guys, but like, I'm like, at the end of the day, you guys are paying less than
Less than a
you
couple
know,
bucks, right?
like $5-10, not
Yeah,
even.
but yeah, that was interesting learning experience. Like coming from just living at home with your parents and then coming to like college, it was definitely interesting.
Well, I mean, the nice, I mean, it'll tell you a lot about a person because, I
Absolutely.
mean, you know, power corrupts, right? So, I mean, a lot of people will take that power and just go batshit crazy with it, right? And it doesn't sound like you did that, which is cool. So, I mean, you learn a lot about a person. That's, you know, it's part of the working experience too.
For
Yeah,
sure.
no, the people that really take that power and like go off the rails are just weird, dude. I think they were like bullied in high school or something, man.
Literally.
It's just like,
Just have nothing better to
I
do.
don't know.
But so going down the list here, Eddie, you said you did some criminal litigation in. Do you mind if I say the area, or should I just not say the area?
So I have no idea if I'm able to disclose that, but
Okay. All right.
I will
So
say that yeah, we'll keep it low key. But I have. So I worked in a public defender's office, and so you get certified when you're in law school.
Mhm.
So this is my last year. So I had a GPA and a situation that allowed me to get certified. So I went in front of the Supreme Court, and was just like, hey, can I start trying some cases? And they were like, yeah. And they gave me the certification, and you know, I essentially worked as a public defender for the last 3 months, and then I'm going into a more of a med mal firm now that I can, you know, take care of some stuff over there and actually start making some money.
got you. Okay. And you also mentioned real
Yeah.
estate on here. Like, what are you doing in the real estate space, like with the current state of the market and everything like that?
So a buddy of mine works over at essentially a brokerage or a firm that's under the brokerage of Keller Williams. And so I draft the contracts for his brokerage,
Okay.
or excuse me, his firm. And then he's going to try to branch off and create his own brokerage. And then so when that happens, by that time I'll be barred and I can be brought in as like of counsel into the brokerage. So I'm kind of starting my own brokerage firm with a buddy of mine.
So is that
and, like-
commercial or residential? Because I mean, the residential stuff's pretty cookie cutter. I mean, it's, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, it's residential. It's extremely cookie cutter. That's the thing is like the market's hot. We're gonna see if it continues to be that way, and see what goes on. But you know, we're just gonna ride the wave and see what happens. If it ends up going to shit, then you know what, we have that. We have Keller Williams. We can jump right back into.
Yep.
Cool.
That's a tough business. I mean, I kind of
It's
did
hard,
that as I tried to do that between jobs at one point. I was like, oh, I'll just go into do real estate. Got the test done, and man, that's a hard hoe. You got to really,
It's cutthroat. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this is kind of off topic, but isn't there something going on in China right now with their real estate whole thing? Like their economy might crash because they're like developing 2 times the real estate, or is that incorrect information? Like,
No, that's exactly what's going on. So they're kind of very much like we were in 2008
Right.
and 2009 with the real estate bubble. They're kind of going through that right now. So I mean, they overbuilt and oversold, and yeah, now it's coming back to bite them.
Damn. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Did not know that.
Yeah, there's like a big thing going on over there. I wish I did more research on it because they have like a countdown of like it's like China's economy countdown or something like that, and they're like counting down the days until they think it's
Yeah,
gonna
I mean, they
crash.
build all these. I mean, I mean, if you look at China, right? They build these massive building complexes, and then they they get all these loans and stuff, and then they can't sell all the places, or
They just stop
you know.
development or something in the
Yeah.
middle of the like in the middle of a project or something.
right? And they could have had maybe whatever it is, 10%, 20% buy rates into the buildings, and because they can't fund it anymore, those 20% of the people are just completely losing their life savings because the project's not getting done. Because they were again building on speculation that just never really materialized because there's still a very tight economy over there. So
Right. Now, Eddie, you were talking quickly about about your entrepreneurship and everything like that. You were talking about in the text message about an app or a project that you're working on. Can you talk more about that, or is there like some
Yeah.
sort of agreement on it? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so right now I have most of the stuff developed, and I'm trying to find an investor. That's my biggest thing is I'm looking for an investor. So I have an app called CPay, and CPay would work. You went to Westchester, so I'll speak of it in terms of like Westchester.
Okay.
And so you open the app and there's a QR code, and that QR code is going to have all of your information from that university. So that's going to include your health information. So for when you go to the infirmary, when you go to financial aid, it's going to have how much you owe. It's going to have how much you like need to take out, blah, blah, blah. And then in addition to that, it's going to have all of your meal situations. So
Okay.
that's going to include the cafeteria, but also like when you go use Rambucks, or like essentially how like different schools will have restaurants in the area accept meal dollars in place of like actual cash. So all of that's going to be on the app. And so essentially all the student information is going to be encompassed in this one QR code, and it's going to scan you into your dorm as well if you live on campus, all this stuff. So the thing is like all this information is going to be done, and simply what you would do is you would go around and you would set up different scanners. So the scanner at, for example, the pizza shop around the corner is going to have a certain scanner that's going to take off your Rambucks. The scanner at the infirmary is going to have that scanner that's going to read it to make sure that it has it's going to have all your health information, et cetera, and et cetera. And it's just going to it's going to be ease on the students rather than, I found a big problem for me in college was just like I felt as though I was left in the dark regarding a lot of my financial information, my health information, because I did get my health insurance through the school at one point. And then, I also had some other health and like instances going on at the time. And they were essentially my primary care physician at that point. And then in addition to that, my loans, a lot of this stuff was, kind of just left in the dark, and I had to try to figure it out, which I eventually did, but it took me a year to actually figure out how to use everything.
Okay.
But if you go there and you go and just scan this QR code, it makes it a little bit difficult, but it also requires people to do their jobs, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. So you go and you scan it there, and, then they have all your information. And you're no longer, you enter that information from like the beginning. So you go and register for Westchester, for example, and you go and you type in all your information, where you get your health insurance, your name, date of birth, how many Rambucks you have, and it's all there. And that's all you have to do at that point.
So
it's an
essentially
allure to the school for students.
it's like it's like a school profile essentially. So you could see all of your information as you mentioned on it. So it's a profile essentially, right?
Exactly.
Okay. It sounds like a great idea because like I was in the same boat as you. Like I felt like there was a lot of, I don't know if it would be like spendable money or just money that you would have in this account. Like at Alvernia, for example, when we went there, I had at the end of the year just like excess money that was like able to be spent on books and so forth and so on at the bookstore that I just didn't know about, and I ended up buying.
Expired,
Yeah, well, it didn't expire. I ended up buying a pair of AirPods with it because I was told like you could buy anything in the store, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy AirPods with it. So
Yeah.
it's just like it sounds like a good idea for someone that doesn't necessarily know if they have the money to be able to be the money to spend, or didn't even know if they had that in the first place.
Well, that's the thing, yeah, because that's like, at the end of the day, you could have walked in there and had all your books taken care of at the beginning of the semester, rather than, and like you scan that there, they say you have $4,000 worth of, textbooks or however many like you would have to put aside, and you'd be like, okay, great, pay for all these, and then also save the rest for my next semester. And then, at the end of the day, when you finish that up, when you go and buy your books for the second semester, they say you have this much left over, go nuts.
No, for sure.
That's the thing is you came in at the end of the year buying AirPods, but that's $200. That's a textbook right there.
No, yeah, I wish I knew that earlier in the year, because they did the same thing at Westchester, but I knew about it a little bit more because they call it the RAM bucks, and you kind of just save your RAM bucks or your credits or whatever it is if you're on the food program. But you could actually spend them at Starbucks. So like oftentimes towards the end of the year, you would see people, they would go in there and just buy like 4 or 5 of the what do you call that? Just like the coffee bags.
Of coffee.
Yeah, bags of coffee. You know what I mean? So it's just like.
So is this going to be a standalone app, or are you going to basically license or sell the software to be rebranded and specific for each and every university?
I would love to sell the software. I would love to sell the
Just
software
sell it all,
and have it be rebranded.
So just sell it all
Yeah.
outright. Okay.
So it would be a
Yeah,
Westchester app or wherever, Villanova app.
Exactly.
But
Yep.
it would be your back end, right?
Is there a reason that you don't want to go about the licensing route?
Well, I would imagine, right? I mean, you just mentioned healthcare records and financial records, right? So you're talking about if you do it yourself,
you
got
have the
to
back end for that.
You have to follow all the HIPAA rules and all of the FASA rules and all. I mean, I can only imagine that must be a real nightmare to navigate.
Exactly. As soon as I get healthcare information, I go like I would be terrified. So that's the thing is I would be absolutely terrified. So I would rather someone else deal with it,
Okay.
rather than me, because I make one small slip up as the single operator of the app, and I'm screwed. Rather than I license it to Westchester University, and they have a whole department there taking care of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and they already have all that stuff in place.
No, so I was actually, when I asked that question, I was actually that's actually great that you brought that up, because I didn't even know that was on the sheet here. But like I was talking more so about that fuel thing that you were talking about, because you have your hand in a couple of different pots. I mean, that sounds like a fantastic idea, but this fuel one, you have a claim saying that you could save like some fuel companies 1/3 on their bottom line for fuel. Like how do you even break into that market? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I ended up I worked for Penske in 2018. So that company with the big yellow trucks.
Yeah, they were big in Reading.
Yeah, so I ended up, while I was there, a project that I had was just trying to figure out how to save money.
Mm-hmm.
So the big thing was like I was just like, okay, you can go buy a bunch of new trucks and call it a day, because they're not worn out and they're going to use a little bit less fuel, and you already have the bottom line to begin with. But the thing was, it's just like I felt like that was just too simple of an answer. So I went and I ended up going and saying, okay, well, I have this, this technology that I found. It's called Greenleaf, and the Greenleaf app ended up getting tossed from the App Store in like 2006,
Okay.
Or whatever base that Apple had at that time. Because essentially, how certain things are just ahead of their time. It was kind of like the PlayStation Portable of transportation apps at that time.
The
where
PSP. Shout out to that.
It was just. Yeah, seriously, but it was just like it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
So I found that, and I was just like, "What does this do?" So it essentially finds the most efficient route for cars for them to save fuel. So instead of going I would be at my parents' house in Pottstown, like to get to Westchester. Do I take 100, or do I go and get on 202? So like either like a back road highway or like a back road, or do I take the main route, like highway? And most of the time it would tell you to take 202, even though it's a couple miles longer, because it's going to save you on fuel in the long run. Yeah. So that's what it would do for all these trucks. And then I was just like, okay, well, it can't be too different for an 18-wheeler. If you should be able to find a program in there to switch it from like a 4-door sedan to an 18-wheeler. Yeah. So that was my thing, is I was just like, okay, you have that opportunity. So all you need to do is like get this licensing for this app and then download it onto all of our Garmin systems. And so you would just go and do that. So every truck company I found is able to do this. And over a year period, so if you were to have a $1 billion bottom line for fuel, you'd be able to save 1/3 of that $1 billion bottom line on fuel costs if you were to implement this app onto your Garmin or other GPS system.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, because me and my buddies, we always just like joke about like the $1 billion idea. Like I've talked about this idea with like a refrigerator, and there was another one where it's like a refrigerator that automatically like I talked to you about it. It's just like basically if you're running low on eggs, it'll just like reorder something off of Amazon and it'll restock it, right? But there was another one that was essentially like, think of like Grubhub or Uber for gasoline, right? So essentially you could open up an application, and just like you were kind of describing, it would pop up of all the gas stations in the area for their fuel prices, because a lot of the times you hear like, if you go down the
it's built into every map app.
No, not me. I don't see that.
Oh, well, Gas Buddy or something. There's a bunch
Okay.
of,
Well,
there's a million apps that do that.
don't kill my dream here, Joe. All right. So basically, you would open it up and you would just see all the different the prices.
You're 50 years late to the
All right,
party.
man.
So.
Anyway, but no, that's an interesting.
So, but I'm actually kind of
that's an
curious about
interesting
this
take.
trucking thing, right? So, I guess I don't know the trucking industry, but what's more important, speed or route to destination or fuel savings? Because I'm assuming that sometimes the more fuel efficient route might not be the fastest route. How's that balance out?
So in some cases, you kind of have to bite the bullet and take the fastest route, because like if they're saying that you have to drive across country and here's the most fuel efficient route, here's the most the quickest route. If it's a day difference or a 2-day difference, you got to go the fastest route.
Right.
But if you're taking it from Reading to for example like State College, and you're shipping out there, and there's 2 routes, and one of them is going to be 2 hours longer, but the one that's 2 hours longer is going to
Save you a
burn
couple
more fuel.
$100, right? Yep.
Yeah, then heck yeah, take that route. Save us some money.
Fair. I mean, yeah, that's definitely an interesting way to look at it. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm all about like startups and everything like that. So I guess like you said, like your biggest thing for all these things is just primarily just finding the funding and investors, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Is I've been to chambers of commerce and just kind of like reaching out, trying to figure out the best route for me to take, and just trying to find people that would be willing to invest.
So I'm always curious about this. So I mean, so the actual app development are you doing that, or are you basically conceptualizing the idea and then offshoring it for the actual coding? How's
For
that
which
work?
one?
I don't. I'm just. I mean, maybe it's just a general question, because I always think like I'm a guy who doesn't have coding experience, but like Dave, right? I'm always here brainstorming. I'm like, I wonder if I just came up with an idea, if I could just basically hire an offshore. You get those trash emails all the time, and I'm like, I wonder if there's you could actually maybe hire these guys for pennies on the dollar to actually do the coding. And I'm wondering if people do that. Yeah.
I mean, real quickly before you give your answer, Eddie, sorry to cut, but I have a friend that he did the same thing with the app that's it's essentially like a secondary for eBay that I FaceTimed with you. He did that, and he reached out to a couple people like in different places. Like I know he had one in like India, and there's places, but for them to get your idea and then put your idea, unless specifically instructed, it kind of messes up, and he's wasted a lot of money with like, I guess he calls it bad developers, just because he's said, all right, do this, do this, do this, and they kind of take what he said and then did it. Maybe he didn't explain it to his best ability and ended up wasting thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, I get it.
But if you want to give your answer, sorry for cutting you off there, Eddie.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I can only speak to the 2 things that I have. So I have a buddy right now who just graduated with an IT degree, and he's going for his master's. So he's very like well versed in coding. So he's taking care of the one that actually involves more coding. So that would be the CPay app with the QR code. So he would be the person that I'm talking to regarding that. And then the trucking one, the technology is already there. Yeah. So that's the thing, is I need to reach out, and I've been trying to get in contact, because this thing was taken off the App Store or the database in 2006. So I have no idea, and I've been doing, and literally my entire thing has been researching where this person is now.
Yeah. Okay.
So that I can license this tech, because I have the money, I have everything that I would need to do to buy it off of them. So I need to find him. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
And fair. I have no idea where the heck he is.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
in this day and age, that's kind of hard to believe, right? Like I was able to track down the guy who owns the exclusiveminds.com domain, right? He's some dude in, where the hell was he? Thailand or some shit. Yeah. And I'm like, it's amazing how much information you can actually get on people. It's pretty spooky, actually.
Yeah.
You'll find him. I believe in your technological ways, man. You got it.
Yeah, I'll have my buddy, honestly. Like that's my own thing. I'm not like a tech guy. I have people that can handle that for me. So I have a buddy who would be able to do it. I just figured I might as well try to do it myself before I go pay him.
No, for sure. Right. I mean, so now I guess the final question on this, and we can move on to the next topic, would be, what's the budget look like for something like this if you have a number, right? Let's say you're in front of Mark Cuban or Elon Musk right now, and you're pitching them your idea. They're like, all right, what's the bottom line? What are you looking for, I guess, in the fuel business? I guess that's the one that you were, the QR with the profile for the schools. Like, what would that budget look like?
Well, see, the thing is like I don't think it's going to disrupt the university industry entirely. Like that's just not going to happen. But my thing is with that is though it's going to draw a lot of students to your university. So I'm not going to go and give it like a $14 million evaluation. But what I would do is I would probably give it a $3 million evaluation right now.
Okay.
And that's where it's at. I mean, in terms of once the software is developed and once we actually have it up and running and can bring it in front of people, I'm certainly not going to go in front of people why I don't have anything rather than an idea and someone that's willing to make it happen. I'm not going to go in front of people and ask for money because that's just stupid.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly saying once it's up and running, I ran the numbers. I've ran how much, it would cost for them to, like if a university wanted to buy it off of me. I've run the numbers as to how we go and say, okay, well, this is how much it's going to cost for this package, this package, this package. Yeah. So if we get just simply like 3 or 4 states in their state schools to buy in, then we have around a $3 million valuation at that point.
I was more okay. That's good to know, but I was more so talking about like to actually get the product made. Like, did you did you know how much did you do like any number crunching on how much that would cost you out of pocket or how much you would need? Like, I mean, like talking like 20, 30, 40, $50,000 or do you know?
Yeah. So it's $63,000.
$63,000. Wow.
Yeah.
And where do those numbers just come from? Just like
that's
salaries and stuff like that for people to actually get it done?
That's going to people that are, the people that are going to be coding, the people that are going to be, actually developing what the app looks like.
Right.
And then I would do the business model and things like that as to how like we would sell it to different like universities and stuff like that. But the thing is like and that's going and getting a freelance coder. So if my buddy's able to do it, then he's going to be willing to do it at a much lower rate. But getting a freelance coder to do that for you is around $50,000.
Wow.
So that's the thing is like going and just finding some random guy like to just be like, hey, can you do this for me? That's going to be $50,000. And that's just, And then you also have, you have and then you have the 13,000 in marketing once you actually get it up and running to get it out and like, be like, okay, well, let's get it on Facebook. Let's get it on, let's go travel to different universities and pitch it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's not even including the amount of time that you would have to, like I said, draft up kind of like I don't even know, like a giant Word document of like exactly how you want everything to be placed and everything like that. Like if it's your buddy, I'm sure that would probably be easier. But if you're going to like an offshore or a freelancer that's not even maybe even from this country, you would have to maybe get those specific details exactly how you would want to do it. And that could take a lot of time. And you're going to have to incorporate the budget for mistakes. Like obviously there's going to be some mistakes along the way if, there's someone that
always
doesn't
overruns.
see it. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I guess this is a topic for you and Joe here because I'm not necessarily a soccer or football guy, but talk to us about how you got into the semi-professional soccer. What was that like, and did you always play soccer your entire life? I would imagine.
Yeah. So the thing was with that is, so I ended up going and playing for a team called Continental. The team Continental is a academy team over in Conshohocken. And that academy team is a farm team to the Union, and there's a couple people from that farm team. So the farm team would kind of just lead into the Union or the Union Academy or something of that nature. And so we have, I think from my team specifically, there's been 3 or 4 guys that have gone on to play in the USL and MLS. So it's a solid program. So at that point, I hurt my knee my senior year. I had an offer from Drexel and UPenn to go play. I wasn't about to hop in and, essentially just like sit there for a season. I'd actually want to rehab. And instead of just being a red shirt, like, I mean, I was just like, I'm not going to be there for 4 years. So let's get the attention that I need, essentially to rehab this knee injury. So I went to Drew, and when I was at Drew, my whole goal was to transfer out to a D1 school, and go from there. Ended up breaking 2 of my metatarsals, and I was just like, what? I'm calling it a day. I'm calling it a day. And then I ended up getting a call from Alvernia, and the guy was just like, let me go play you, and we'll see what happens. So I went there, and I bossed up for a couple games. And, I ended up getting a look from a place called like just Reading United, and it's a semi-professional team that plays out of the USL2. And played a couple games with them. I mean, it wasn't anything like I played a ton with them, but it is something that I did do. Yeah. I trained with them on a regular basis, and it was good. They were good players. They were much better than I was, but it was cool that you got to see like I played with these guys that are now in the MLS and playing overseas as well. So it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I guess like what was I'm trying to think here because I don't know. I just know that soccer fans are like absolutely crazy. So like my thing is like I never got into it, right?
Oh, you're missing out.
Yeah.
So
Best sport on the planet.
I guess
You are.
yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is like, is soccer one of those things that what's so captivating about like what draws in for soccer, right? Because for me, I would prefer to go to a baseball game. Like I'll never watch a game of baseball on the TV. Like I just can't do it. It puts me to sleep. But when I'm in person, it's all right. You know, I can manage. But even then, it's like somewhat like snooze fest.
So I mean, one of the nice things about soccer, right, is it's a 90-minute commitment.
Okay.
90-minute plus or minus a few minutes, right? But generally speaking, right, from start to finish, it's a 90-minute game plus a 15-minute halftime, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, you get up on a Saturday morning and you're watching, right? You're in it for 2 hours. Where you watch what, a football or a baseball game? That shit's like 4.5 hours. You know, it's like, and it's boring as shit to me. I don't know. I mean,
I guess agree.
You got television commercials, right? It's also 45 minutes halves that is straight through. There's no TV commercials, right? If they want to get TV ads, they have to basically run banners at the top or the bottom of the screen when you're watching on TV. It's straight through. There's no TV breaks.
Really?
No. So I mean, I can't watch. I mean, I can't watch football. I can't watch baseball. I mean, it's just like you just said, right? It's boring as shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even if you go, it's the same thing. I mean, you're just not seeing the commercials playing, but you're seeing them stand around and
waiting, right?
Kick the dirt, waiting for the TV commercial break. And I'm like, I don't have the time, or maybe I just don't have the
patience for
patience to sit there for 4 hours or whatever it is, and not have it as straight, nonstop entertainment.
No, that's fair. What about you?
Yeah.
What draws you in, Eddie?
I think it's honestly just knowing the athleticism that goes into it. Like if you go and look up, I believe it was like Cristiano Ronaldo, and he was like tested by these people, like sports scientists, and he runs as fast when he does cuts. Like when he cuts, he runs as fast as an Olympic sprinter. When he goes and he jumps as high as he jumps above the average of an NBA player. When he has a ball, they had Navy snipers try to hit the ball while he was, so they had lasers from their guns trying to shoot him, but he was in a passageway, and he had to move the ball so that they couldn't touch it. In 60 seconds they hit it once. So the thing is, it's just the athleticism, the skill that goes into it. If you actually look through it and just say oh my God, this guy's nuts. This guy's like a superhuman. So and just to know the effort and the technique that goes into it. I think that's the thing. It's just playing it my entire life. I ended up I was okay in the grand scheme of things. I played college, and that puts you in the top. I forget 3% or something like that of athletes or something like that. But I still played D3. Yeah. And I could have gone higher, but I didn't. So I'm not gonna be that guy that's just I could have gone D1, but I couldn't. But no. So the thing is
just that
you
athleticism.
End up. And it's the sheer athleticism that goes into the sport. Yeah. And it's just it's a certain type of, you have to be just as strong, and you have to be just as quick. If you go and just go look at how fit these dudes are. Go look up Bayern Munich players. Mm-hmm. Go look at these good dudes' physiques, and it's insane.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing.
I mean, the other thing you get is if you look at the European leagues. Right, they have these, regional loyalties that are just off the charts because, if you look at the U.S., right, we've got a team here in Philadelphia, you got a team in New York, right, but if you look at England, they've got 5 or 6 teams that are in the London Metro. So you have these very localized loyalties that also come into play. This dynamic that is just off the charts. So you have a little bit of that in New York, right, where you have the Mets and you got the Yankees, right? You've got multiple teams in the same city, but that's rare. There's I think other than maybe L.A., right? You don't have that. Where think about having 5 teams in the New York Metro, and having your favorite, and sort of having those the strong loyalties you have for sports teams, right? And that just kind of extends, and that's across the entire European theater, right? You look at Italy, it's the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, there's multiple teams in a lot of these major metros.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so touching back on the athleticism, I guess real quick, is Ronaldo, because that's the one thing I do know about soccer is how dedicated, I guess it was Ronaldo. He was, because he wasn't I guess, what was his backstory? Like, there's something with him where he wasn't necessarily the greatest, but he put so much time in that made him the greatest. Does that sound fair to say? Or I might be thinking of someone else.
So, I mean, he takes it to a whole different level. I mean, he basically lives and breathes soccer, right? So
that's his like whole thing.
You know, a lot of these guys get the big contracts and go out and, you know, basically party or, you know, go to wherever, right? And, you know, this guy is just 24/7, like thinking about fitness and soccer. And like he was the first guy when he came to United, he was like 17 years old or whatever, right? And he was so hyper focused on it. Like he actually hired like his own chef and all this other stuff to make sure that his, you know, food was, and he just takes it to a whole
above and beyond,
level.
right? Would you say he's the best soccer player? Who's the best soccer player, Eddie?
Of all time?
Yeah.
Ronaldo, for sure. That's the thing is like, I mean, if you go and like look in the past, you know, these guys, and like that's the thing too is like if you go and look in the past, they were playing against like accountants, and like you know, like the guy, like no shame to them, but like they did not focus on the sport 24/7.
Yeah, well that is true.
They did not have that.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess in today's world, right, it's basically a decision between Messi and Ronaldo, right? And it's a religious argument. So I mean, I'm a Manchester United guy, right? So Ronaldo is the best that I've ever seen, right? Better than Messi, but you know that's a religious conversation. So.
He's the guy that does the sui or whatever, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right, fair enough. That's how I know him. Okay.
I mean, just to break up that argument real quick. I mean, the thing that
yeah, go ahead. Knock it down.
I'm very passionate.
Knock it down, Eddie.
Messi played for Barcelona his entire life. They had an entire team built around Messi. And by no means am I saying that Messi is a bad player. He is fantastic. Mm-hmm. But they had an entire team built around this man. So that if he didn't succeed, that would be awful. Now he's at PSG, and the first year he's at PSG, he doesn't do anything. Second year, he doesn't get nominated for the Ballon d'Or.
Yep.
You know, Cristiano Ronaldo, even though he's on I mean, no offense, Joe, I apologize. Even though he's on a shit Man U team right now.
That's
like,
a good word. That's a kind word.
Even though he's on that team, he was still the third top scorer in the Prem last year.
Yep.
Like at 37 years old. 37 years old is usually when people go and like start playing in like, you know, the Saudi leagues for like an obscene amount of money. He's playing in the top league in Europe, and he's killing it. Although he got absolutely demolished by that one dude over at Brentford yesterday. He is like still playing really well.
So
really, really well.
What makes like other people, because I know like obviously like names like Neymar and like David Beckham, like what makes those guys so marketable that they're like kind of like maybe not even mentioned in the top players like you said, but they're such huge names in the sport?
So, I mean, my thought process is, you know, I'm sorry to cut you off, Joe.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
My thought process is Neymar at the beginning was, you know, a Brazilian kid with flair. And their whole idea was there was a guy named Ronaldinho who ended up having just the touch of a god, essentially. And like he was just tons of flair. Mm-hmm. But again, like I said, he had a very short-lived prime, Ronaldinho did. But they were like, Neymar looks like this guy that could be essentially the Ronaldinho. And, you know, like he ended up doing very well for himself. But again, he just could never catch Ronaldo or Messi in terms of statistics or, you know, what they could do. Ronaldo and Messi have always been able to adapt their game except Messi when he goes and changes teams. Ronaldo, for example, gets a knee injury and all of a sudden he's not as, you know, tricky with the ball anymore. He ends up going and being an absolute clinical finisher. And like he does that and he changes and he's still just as effective, just in a different manner. So Neymar has never been able to adapt his game to the area that he's in. Mm-hmm. So he's still great, but he's always the same player.
So is he like overhyped and like kind of underdelivered, would you say, for Neymar?
Yes.
Okay.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like they built him up to be on that like Messi, Ronaldo level, and he's just
I mean, the two that you just mentioned, right? So I mean, the way, like I said, the soccer like national loyalties and localized loyalties are really important to the game. So anytime there's a potentially really good Brazilian, there is a ton of hype that comes with that, and some live up to it, some don't, right? And Neymar's, I guess the verdict is still out. But the same thing with Beckham, right? So, I mean, Beckham's obviously a great player, but he also was an English-born player, right? And at the time he was kind of coming into the game, that was right about the time where they actually had built-in metrics in the Premier League where you had to have a certain number of what they called homegrown players. So anytime there was an English-born player that had any skills, there was a lot of hype that wrapped around that. And then, of course, he obviously had the looks and the personality to kind of extend on that. But it was, there's definitely a lot of buildup around it just based on certain dynamics of that particular individual. Sometimes it's not as, the actual game isn't necessarily the most important part of it.
What about you, Eddie? What's your take on Beckham?
David Beckham, I think, he has, so I take all the other players, like everyone has a skill, like, Neymar has the dribbling ability, like it's insane. And then Beckham had the vision and the ability to place a ball that was insane. So he could place the ball on a dime, and it was absolutely nuts. And he was extremely skilled. But the thing is he was, again, that was his thing. If you have these like very well-rounded players like Ronaldo and Messi, like they're not one-dimensional like that. Yeah. They don't have that one thing that everything is their thing. So you have that. David Beckham also, like Joe had said, is he is an absolutely great businessman, and he has created House 99, which is like a men's grooming company, and he during his time as a player, like he had numerous like other like things that he was sponsored by that were outside the realm of soccer. Like he was sponsored by numerous fashion brands. He modeled all that stuff. So he was that first person to actually do that and break that barrier. So that's another reason why he was so popular.
Yeah. That was kind of like it when I talk about those guys, it kind of almost reminds me of like Odell Beckham Jr. in the football sense of things. Like he's very,
exactly,
you know what I mean? Like he's very hyped and he did great things. Like he's a great player, but like you said, when he's placed around people that can't perform or I guess like make the best out of every situation, he just doesn't do the best, if that makes sense. Even though he just did catch a ring, I guess, last year.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, right? But I mean, you have guys like, for example, like Antonio Brown when he was on the Steelers. Like talk about like an absolute like demon. Like that's the type of guy that puts in the top like the greatest wide receivers, right? You know what I mean? So that's just that whole argument. Last thing, I guess,
it's got to be really hard though living up to that hype. I mean, I can only imagine, right? Yeah, so I mean, that's the other thing. Like, you get that label put on you, and then you got to live up to it, and it's just that has got to eat away at some people. I mean, it can't be easy.
Yeah, no, for sure. No. Last thing, before we close down, or any closing thoughts. Actually, no, we actually have one more thing after this. You mentioned the head legal ambassador for the National Down Syndrome Society. Do you care to talk about that at all?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the big thing that I do there is right now there are numerous things that are going on with that. There are certain things that, I don't like. I have my certain political views, and like, there's certain things that have to happen. There's some states in the United States. This is the first one that I'm really big on, is where you can pay someone with Down syndrome or any kind of intellectual ability less than the minimum wage. And so the thing is like, that's really messed up, because why is 16-year-old John, who doesn't have an intellectual disability, and 16-year-old Steve, who does, why are they both baggers at an Acme, and one of them gets minimum wage and the other one doesn't? They're doing the same job. That doesn't make any sense. If they're trained to do the same job and they can both perform the same job, that makes absolutely no sense to me. And that's not just from a compassion standpoint. That's from a fairness and freedom standpoint. Like, you should have the freedom to market yourself in a way that's even in those roles. I am able to do this job, and I am able to do it well despite what you see on the outside. And why are you not paying me what I deserve to be paid? And that's in my opinion pretty fucked up. Gotcha. The second one is transplant laws, and that's it's luckily going in in a way that's pretty positive. But in the United States, there's certain states that do not have a law in place that prevents discrimination in transplant laws. So, for example, like if I needed a new kidney and someone with Down syndrome needed a new kidney, and they were on the list before me in Pennsylvania, not Pennsylvania specifically, but there are other states in this particular case. So say I end up going into a different state, mainly out west. In that particular realm, I need a kidney. Someone with a Down syndrome needs a kidney. They're already on the list. I could hop over them on the list because I do not have that disability, and that's a problem. That's a big problem. And that's the biggest thing. So it's, again, fairness and freedom in healthcare. Like, just because you happen to have this condition or this particular set of circumstances, you are still entitled to healthcare if if you can pay for it, if your insurance covers it, if everything that's in there, takes care of it, why are you not entitled to this over me? Like, that just doesn't make sense. It's just like, they're a person, I'm a person.
How fastly, or is there like a push towards that, or is that kind of like a slow riding wave? Like, are we going closer to that, or is it just something that seems to be put on the back burner?
So right now, the transplant laws are really, really hot, and so they're being passed in a lot of states. They just passed one in West Virginia that I think is the best one that they've passed, countrywide. And it's essentially, it's great. I'm a big fan of it, and I'm a big fan of looking at the essentially, there's no way to poke a hole in that one that they've done. Mm-hmm. There's laws that they've passed in other states that essentially do the same thing, but you're able to poke holes in it. So my thing is I would love to see the one that was passed in West Virginia be passed federally. But I don't know if that's going to happen right now with the current administration, and the way the Congress is made up. But it's just, I genuinely, it frustrates me because, there's nothing there that would be, there's nothing there that's, preventing someone from getting a transplant other than they have this like disability. And that's frustrating. There's no financial barriers. There's nothing there that would say that this person can't get it other than the fact that they have that disability. And that's frustrating, and it's not fair. So those are the two legal issues that I've been kind of tackling at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's dope that you're attacking that, and it's something that you're very passionate about. That's fantastic. I really fuck with that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. Then the last I guess topic we could talk about. I posted on my Snapchat for people to write in questions. I thought that would be pretty cool for us to kind of break down questions of
Snapchat. What's that?
Oh, God. Oh, yo, real quick before we continue, people wanted me. I don't know if you're. Are you a rap fan, Eddie?
Of course.
Okay, so people wanted me to tell you an album to listen to from Joey Badass, because on the last podcast, me and Joe debated if Joey Badass was a legend or not, and they wanted me to tell you to listen to his album 1999. I should have told you to do that. So listen to 1999, and then you tell me if he's a legend in the rap space. Do you have any comment about Joey Badass at all if you listen to him, Eddie?
I do. And I think Joey Badass is a great rapper. However, I do not think that he is on the level of legend right now. I do think, though, he does have that. So my thing is I feel like he's Kanye, but a step below, because he does the fashion business as well. Mm. But to say that he is not good, to say that he's not working his way to legend status, and that he will not be at legend status by the end of his career, is a joke.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's a fair
so
take. I like that take. I like that take.
All right.
I like that take.
1999.
1999. Give it
Joey Badass.
Joey Badass. Sorry. The GOAT.
Okay.
All right.
Is this so what was the other guy that I
he didn't know who Lil Uzi was.
9 or Uzi something or
Lil Uzi Vert.
Yeah, no. Lil Uzi, I think, is legend status.
Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, I'm not,
Yeah, for sure.
So Run DMC, Mount Rushmore of rap, it's Run DMC, Joey Badass, and
Lil Uzi
Vert. So this kind of goes back to the root of what this podcast was supposed to be, right?
Exactly.
It's generational challenges. I'm
going to ask this question, and then Joe and Eddie, you guys feel free to hop in, and then I'll give mine at the end. So one of the questions we got, and feel free, this is an open invitation to anyone that's listening to this. Please write in. We will start doing this from now on if we have the request for it. I think it'll be a fantastic conversation point. But this comes from a friend of mine. I won't say his name just because I don't want to put him out there, but it says, how do you find the middle ground between being compassionate but also able to say no? Because you're either too nice and people take advantage of you, or you're a dickhead and people complain. That's part one of the question. And then he kind of comments and says, personally found a safe haven in being selfish, as it translates well to being a business standpoint where I'm at. I can get more stuff done and less distractions. So where do you find the middle ground between being compassionate but also being able to say no and stand your own ground?
Wow. So, I mean, for me, I guess
just sticking to your guns, would you say?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, right? So you see the homeless guys on the street, or, whatever it is, there's causes that come knocking on your door all the time. And maybe I'm just jaded at this point because I've kind of lived a long life, right? I mean, I basically just turn all that shit down, and I just, you kind of give to those causes that you've personally sort of, are behind and vetted, and you just feel comfortable about it, and you have to unfortunately just sort of draw a line in the sand, and the rest of it, they all could be valid and viable, but you have to just treat them as white noise and just say, I can't do it. And so it might be a jaded way of looking at it, but it's not that you're not doing the right thing. It's just you're focused in on what is important to you, and you do as well as you can for those particular causes because you've done your homework or whatever it might be. That's unfortunate because there's just so much BS in the world today that you have to be kind of hyper-focused on what it is that you're doing. At least for me, that's what I do.
Nice. Good answer. I like that, actually. Eddie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on your situation here. So it depends on who's being asked and who's, responding. So, like, I think the problem is a lot of people in our generation, David, they have a boss and they ask them to do something and they feel as though they could say no. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, like, no, your boss, I don't know, if you're doing shift work or something like that, your boss asks you to clean the bathrooms, you got to clein the bathrooms. Like,
that's kind of got to eat shit, right?
Yeah, man, it's just part of the way that you have to do it. Like, you can't say no to your boss unless they do something that's super out of pocket. That's the thing is, like, there's a job to be done, you got to do it. You were asked to do it, you do it. And that's the thing is, like, there's people nowadays that don't think that that's the case, and that's a problem. Mm-hmm. However, if it's someone on the street asking you to donate to a cause, you think like, okay, is this legit? Is this something that I would want to do? And also, I think that the problem is with those situations, as was mentioned, you don't necessarily know where it's going to. There's a lot of organizations that are out there that are, the money doesn't really go to where you think it's going.
Yep.
So, you do a lot of the research yourself, and you realize that the places that you've been donating to aren't necessarily exactly going to what you want.
Yeah.
So, the best thing to do, I think, in terms of being compassionate, is stay in your lane, keep tunnel vision, stick to your goals, and volunteer. If you volunteer, you can find an organization that you end up seeing as something that ends up being something you're very passionate about, does good work, and you can make progress toward that and fill that need that you have for compassion within yourself, because every human being has that need for compassion. But if you go and give to everyone, then you have nothing left in your glass, and you don't even know what you're giving to anymore. So that would be my take.
Well said.
No, that is well said. I mean, I agree with both of you guys. I mean, my girlfriend always tells me this story about she went to a Wawa and someone asked her for gas money or something like that. They're like, oh, I'm like broke down. If we don't have my wallet, so on and so forth. So she was feeling nice. She just got off of work. She got paid well that day, I guess. And she ended up giving them like $40 rather than like putting it into the tank, right?
Yeah.
So she went into the gas station. She came out and the dude was just gone. Within like a matter of like minutes. So I guess it's just like you said, voluntary, but do your research, do your due diligence, and also like take precautionary measures because you don't know where the money's going to, like you said. And if it's something that you're truly passionate about, whether it be like us, like we've done the breast cancer research where we donate our fair share to that, and recently we've been doing the mental health, but we're just trying to get our foot in our hands in as many pots as possible. So, or not as possible, but just like what we, believe in and what we're passionate about. So do your due diligence. And, I feel like if you're passionate about anything, or in this situation, they use the word compassionate, just do what your heart is. And like Joe said, stand by your guns. If you feel like your gut's telling you something, but your heart's kind of telling you, oh, let me go try this out because the grass might be greener on the other side, just stick with what you know. And, it's better to be safe than, I guess, sorry in most cases. But I don't know. I guess it's very situational, I guess you could say.
Yep.
For sure.
The second part to the question is, as a man, oh God, we're going the Andrew Tate route here. No, I'm just kidding. As a man, what is your end goal? Because it feels like I can outdo my potential by being cold rather than being warm, as it taught me discipline, patience, and persistence. I don't even know what that word says. PERSPICACIOUS.
I don't know.
Okay. I don't know. Like, what's your end goal? Just to, I guess, like, provide for your family?
Yeah.
I guess just, like, what's your end goal as a man? I mean, I don't know. Like, not as a man. Just
life,
as a
liberty,
human.
and the pursuit of happiness. I don't know. I mean...
Do you have an answer, Eddie?
I mean, I think my biggest thing is that everyone has a different definition of what a man should be. And like, you have like the people, I guess like the red pill community that's like out there right now. That's just like a man is supposed to be a provider, overall a dick, and just has to go and like, be as strong as he can and like, fight combat sports. And like, you know what, like that's great. And if that's what you do, that's fine. And like I mean, I wouldn't recommend being a dick because that doesn't get you far, but it's just like, at the end of the day, what is a man? A man does what he's supposed to be. Like, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And if you say that you're not going to do something, then, you stick by your word. Your word is gold. In addition to that, like it's, you take care of yourself, you take care of your family, you take care of your loved ones and the people around you. You don't lie, cheat, and steal. And, you keep yourself at a good moral standing. And I think that's what a man should do. And, I think that, that's going to translate. If you have all those values, it's going to translate well into business, career, or whatever you decide to pursue outside of that realm. I mean, that's just my thought process.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on it. I feel like even mentioning back to like our generation of how things are, you said don't like lie, steal, or cheat. I mean, I feel like just because me and my girlfriend just had our 3-year anniversary yesterday of like dating, like
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man.
You're welcome.
When in our generation, I feel like when couples or people, I guess, have to overcome some slight adversity or a slight inconvenience, the first thing would just be to like break up or divorce or something like that. Whereas and even cheating, I feel like is a big thing in our generation as well. And this is just not me saying that just to say that. I feel like it is a fair problem that we're kind of dealing with just our specific generation. But that could just be like maybe the people that I was around during specific times of my life. But I don't know. I just couldn't personally cheat. That's not my thing.
Well, I mean, that's not a specific generational thing, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you've seen that as well.
That's the person. I mean,
I guess.
At the end of the day, right? I mean, I know people, right, that
have
done
that road.
that, and it just, that's them. I mean, I'm not going to judge them, right? But whatever. It's not
generational.
I don't think so.
What is your take on that, Eddie? Do you have anything to say on that?
I mean, I think the thing is like people mess up. I've messed up, and everyone messes up, and I think that's the biggest thing is it's a learning opportunity. And you go and you say you say you're sorry. I think that's the biggest thing for me is like I've messed up. And the thing is like I just didn't know what to do or how to attack a certain situation. And I think my thing is like I learned essentially in my past that you have to take what is actually right and what you think are right may be two separate things. Is making someone upset and cry a little bit because you're just ending something that's not working better than going about your thing and doing something and slipping up? Yeah, it's a heck of a lot better.
Sure. Right.
So the thing is just like you need to find your own moral ground and also figure out what really is right.
Yeah.
And it's a journey. And I think that's the thing. And by no means do I condone it or anything like that. It's just something that's happened in my personal life, and I've messed up and I've said sorry. And it's just like you gotta move on and move forward and just never do it again.
No, for sure. That was a good take. Good take. I mean, I think that basically covers everything. I mean, how long have we been going for? I feel like this conversation flew by.
Hour and 12 minutes.
Damn. Eddie, you're getting up there with our top. What is that? Is this like the longest one?
It might be.
Damn.
I know we've gone over an hour a couple times. Yeah.
But no, it's dope. I mean, I appreciate you, Eddie, and we both appreciate you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Dude, this was a great talk, man. This is definitely one of the better podcasts we've done.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the invite.
Yeah, no, for sure. We'll definitely have to get you back on. Is there anything that you want to shout out or any social medias or anything that you want to promote?
I'm not on any socials, so that's
oh man, this guy Eddie's off the radar, dude.
How's that possible? How is that possible? That's a whole conversation in itself.
Yeah, we have to get this guy.
Holy mackerel.
You have a LinkedIn?
I do have LinkedIn. That's the one thing.
I was gonna say you have to have something, man.
Yeah,
Jeez.
no kidding.
That's okay. Yeah. Well, just shout out to Eddie. I mean, if you think of something, just shoot me a text or shoot it in the group text, and we'll put it in the description of the pod.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, by all means, I'll accept you. But that's about it.
All right, perfect.
But awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it and had a great time. Thank you.
Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Everyone, so shout out to everyone listening. If you want, send us questions or email or DM or whatever it is. We'll try to do like one question per pod or 2 questions per pod. So send us that. But thank you so much.
It doesn't have
again.
to be just that Snapchatty thing, right?
No, that was just a test. It was
Okay.
just a test.
Just
Yeah,
checking.
yeah, yeah.
Could be
All right.
anything.
Could be anything. Anything. All right. Peace out, everybody.
Peace out. Later.
See you, everyone.